Right, hello. So we're going to be doing a video where I'm going to basically just rant about events, mainly Marvel events, for about 20 minutes. So here we go, roll the intro. Right, so, events. I have a big problem with events, and it's actually the reason why I stopped reading comics for a year straight. Civil War 2 just absolutely killed all of my enthusiasm for events in general, and just killed my enthusiasm for comic books in general. So it's like that, and everything to do with events in general. I just hate the whole idea of it. It's like, we're gonna have this one thing that takes over the entire company, and every book is touched by it, even like something you wouldn't expect to be touched by it. They're going to have a tie-in to this event, and the tie-in, you don't even know if it's important or if it's just, another story with that character that just happens to have the label of an event next to it to try and sell that book. It's like, what do we have going on at the moment? So we've just had we've just finished Absolute Carnage. Absolute Carnage is done. So we've got now the whole Empire thing, and also we've got the stuff with the teenagers, the Outlawed thing, which is going on. And we also had that weird 4-part incoming event, which was no, that wasn't the 4-part thing. That was the one-shot issue, the incoming thing, and that was weird. So yeah, we had War of Realms, and as soon as War of Realms finished, we didn't even have any time to digest it. It was straight into Absolute Carnage. Actually, I think Absolute Carnage started halfway through War of Realms, and then there was that other thing that was kind of acts of vengeance. Who remembers Acts of Vengeance? That happened this year, and no one remembers it because it was a 5-issue thing where they just had a character go up against someone else's villain, which was a cool idea. It's just it was happening at the same time as War of Realms and Absolute Carnage. So what's going on? And now you've got Outlawed and Empire going on at the same time, just after you've done that event, and just after you've come out of a pandemic and a company-wide lull of comic books. So your big thing to come back is two Meh events, and penny and diming every comic book reader, and that's not going to make your audience want to come back. That's going to alienate your audience and make your audience feel like, no, we don't want this, we're going away. So that's very annoying. That's annoyed me a lot. And also you got on the DC side, what DC does is, I think it's even worse, because they don't have tie-ins. They don't have tie-ins to their events. They will have the event book happen in like its own book. And then they'll have one-shots that will be tying into that book, but they won't interject into the stories going on in any other book. They'll just be a one-shot issue. Marvel does that as well, but they also have the tie-ins in the main stories, which, that's very annoying, and it takes away from a few issues of what the previous writer was already doing. But what DC does annoys me on a different level, because there was this like Attack of the Monsters thing early on in Tom King's run on Batman. That was like one issue was in Batman, next issue was in Nightwing, then Batwoman, then Batman, then Nightwing, then Batwoman. No one is reading all three books. If you are reading all three books, good for you, you've got the money to do that. But not every comic book reader has the money to buy those books. And this was back at the time where I wasn't doing this for a living. So I wouldn't have been buying all three of those books. But you have to be reading all three of those books because, it's, you're incentivized to. But you've just had a story arc that had nothing to do with these characters, and now you're going to make mini event which ties in with everything. And they did it later with the Button, where it tied in with the Flash. And if you're reading Batman, why would you be reading the Flash? It's simply just to get people to read the Flash. And then we get to the most recent one, which is Heavy Metal, which, rock on. But Heavy Metal seems to be doing everything okay, apart from the fact that it's an event that's coinciding with two other Marvel events, and people have to pick and choose. Are you going to go with the Heroes versus Heroes event, which is Outlawed? Are you going to go with the Heroes versus Villains event that's just standard typical superhero affair, but it's got a shit ton of tie-ins? Or are you going to go with the DC one, which is no tie-ins as we know of yet? It's had one issue. That issue was there. It was subpar. So that's why I just kind of avoid. I just avoid events in general, as a general rule. I'm not even reading Avengers at the moment, so I'm not interested in Empire, I'm not interested in Outlawed, because I'm not interested in those characters. The only thing that's maybe gonna get me to read Empire is because Fantastic Four is having a tie-in with Empire, and I'm reading Fantastic Four, so I might check to see what's going on there. But the thing is, I know if I read the Fantastic Four tie-in to Empire, I'm not going to get any story. I'm not going to get anything to do with the main Empire event, because it's going to be right. What characters aren't being used in the event? Where are they not going in the event? Right, we'll use those characters and we'll go there. That's essentially what an event tie-in is. It's what characters aren't going to be big players in the event, what locations aren't going to be travelled to in the event. For me, personally, the best thing that Marvel has ever done in the most recent years in terms of events is No Surrender, because it had no tie-ins, it was weekly, and it felt big, and it used characters that aren't usually used in the typical way. The other event that I think is perfect, and the perfect way to do an event, is Secret Wars. I don't think we're ever going to get that again in our lifetime, in my lifetime anyway. We're never going to get a Secret Wars event where they just stop, they just end every book and they just replace it with a 5-issue mini and the main event. And the 5-issue minis, you can pick and choose which ones you want, because they just are world building, and the main event is that's your world. and everything else is just like adding more to that, and they're all just kind of like their own separate stories, which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed that whole event, and it's what got me into reading comic books, like in general. I have the poster there. That's a new edition, and I love that event because it did everything right, and it was a good story to boot. There have been events that have been good stories, and recently there's been events that have been good stories, like the Avengers, like the Pleasant Hill one. I can't remember what it was called, but the thing just before Secret Empire, where like Captain America Falcon was still Captain America, and they were in Pleasant Hill, and I think that was a great event. Just the fact that it was just an intertwining between all of the Avengers books, and like part of the story was in Uncanny, part of the story was in the main Avengers, part of the story was in like this, that, and the other, and it all tail ended into Thunderbolts, and Thunderbolts lasted like 6 issues and was gone. Like I don't like that kind of format because not everyone's going to be reading that book. If you're going to do an event, just make it like a weekly, just make it a weekly series that has no tie-ins. I know that kind of goes against the grain of what an event is, but that's the only way I can see, like, it pleasing everyone, because it doesn't ask you to put in extra amounts of money. It's a weekly, so there's no chance of you forgetting the story by the next issue, and you don't have the problem of, like, say, in the Return of the Watchmen, the Doomsday Clock. You don't have that problem where it's like it's just gone for several weeks or several months, and you just don't have story for several months, and then it comes back, and like the stuff that's like meant to be important in it, that's already happened, and you kind of have the story spoiled before it's even finished. And you had that with Secret Wars as well, but it wasn't as important there, and it wasn't as wasn't as detrimental there, but it was kind of detrimental because you had, a month where they didn't have any issues come out. But that's my thing. I think they need to have a weekly event. Event should be either weekly, or they should not touch any other book. Like, tie-ins need to cease to exist, essentially, or there needs to be less of them. And it doesn't need to be like, oh, you can pick and choose which ones are actually important. Like, no, there should be less of them. There should be for the characters that are unimportant, or they should be for the characters that are important to that story, and they need to be just gravy. It should be just gravy, and the main event should be you need it. This is what you read. You don't need anything else to explain what's going on in here. It's just, this is the main event, and everything else is just world building. That's my opinion of what an event should be. The current mold for an event just doesn't work. It's too much of a money sink for people that can't afford it, essentially. It's like, comic books are already expensive enough. You don't need to make it mandatory for someone to be reading every single book just in case it has a tie-in to an event, which is the main thing for a character that you're really enjoying. Like Absolute Carnage, why did it need a Miles Morales tie-in? I know Miles Morales was a part of that book, the Venom book, but to tie in with him. He didn't need to be a big part of it. It didn't need a Avengers tie-in. It didn't need a main Spider-Man book tie-in, but it had it. And you know, I think that the Spider-Man tie-in was good. I think it was a really good tie-in, it was a really good story. But it didn't need to happen. It doesn't need to be there. Absolute Carnage should have just been Absolute Carnage issues 1 through 7. That's how you do it. The Ravencroft stuff that they're doing right now, the Tales of Ravencroft, that's perfect. That's what an event should be. It should just be like 4 issues, 4, 5, 6 issues, maybe 7, depending on how big the event is, and how many characters you want to put in it. It should be 7 max issues of, you know, a story. It shouldn't have tie-ins. It shouldn't be like 10, 11 issues long, certainly not 12. And it doesn't need to take a year, and it doesn't need to, and don't put 2 events out at once. That is really annoying, because a character could be a really prevalent thing in one event and not very prevalent in another. Like, for example, Spider-Man is getting an Empire event. He's also a big part of Outlawed. Why does he need an Empire event? Why are you putting him in Empire when he's already a big part of Outlawed? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I fully understand why events are like this. It's so that they can promote their smaller books. And the books aren't selling. It's like, oh, this book isn't selling. We'll tie it into the story and hope that people enjoying that story are going to want to read this. But also, it's not needed. Like, why did we need a Captain Marvel Absolute Carnage tie-in? Why did we need that? Why did the end half of the Hercules miniseries need to be a tie-in to Civil War 2? Why did that need to happen? That's just my opinion on the whole thing. If you have a different opinion, share it in the comments below. Let me know what you think of events in general. If you're enjoying Empire, more power to you. If you're enjoying Outlawed, more power to you. They're not my thing. I'm just going to stick with the books that I think actually interest me. And that's becoming less and less. Ow. So, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Check out my Instagram, my Twitter, my Twitch. And I'll see you guys soon. Peace.